Only 3 teams remain here in the Western Clash as we're about to get into our lower bracket final to determine who moves on to the grand final, and they will be going up against Fnatic later down the line, and it will be a best of 7. I'm joined to my left-hand side here by Trixler, we have Dreadnought, and we have Glaurung for our all-EU clash. I feel like I'm outnumbered for this, but it's fine. You're the honorary Bjorn of Sweden, so that's okay. Yeah. Boys, overall though, I think while we just kind of wrap up our thoughts of what we saw in the previous series, a good showing out of GFE, a lot to take away from it.
Yeah, GFE continued to surprise. I think, honestly, looking at this entire tournament, Team Freedom and GFE from North America were the 2 that really surprised me in terms of what they did throughout the entire matchups.
Yeah.
So very excited to see what they did. Put Team Liquid on the ropes, man. It was actually kind of interesting as I was walking down here to get ready to come do this. Team Liquid was actually looking a little bit exhausted. Like, wow, that was much rougher than I thought it would be.
That's good to know, actually, going into this next series. Glaurung, unfortunately for North America here, and this isn't me joking, this is actually a serious point, North America has been unable to trump EU, and that road does continue. Is there going to be better hopes for them, say, towards BlizzCon? Do you think that these guys can take away enough to then make that happen? Do you think you're going to be the one to trump Europe? What happens?
I definitely hope that North America has a better showing by BlizzCon, and I think realistically we will. Seems to be like 4 strong teams now, and I think just like the top teams in Europe were sort of bred in battle, the fierce competition as competitive depth grew within the region, I think teams adapted and became stronger, and I think we can see the same in NA.
All right, well, let's start talking about our next series up and coming here at the Western Clash. It is going to be Team Liquid going up against Team Expert. And let's start with Team Liquid, who have just come off the back of a pretty grueling series, as you were mentioning, Tim. A little bit maybe of fatigue setting in towards the end of that series.
Definitely a sigh of relief. You know, I think Team Liquid came into this tournament when we talked to them last week, expecting to get a little bit more easier victories against North America. You know, that was one of their goals, was to at least beat North America, get top 3, and they've achieved 2 of them. There is one more goal that is still lingering, and they want to beat Fnatic, but they'll have to get through Expert.
Expert, a tough opponent, but Dread, looking at that previous series and how Team Liquid has approached this tournament so far, what do you take away from how Team Liquid has done here and what their prospects are in this tournament?
I feel like this is going to be a huge task for them to be able to take Expert right now. Not only because of the momentum, maybe, or the energy exerted by trying to take out Gale Force before, but even just looking at the approach and the drafts that the team have taken up against some of the North American teams, Expert legitimately was like 3 picks ahead of North America, like across the board. Whereas Liquid was kind of holding their own. Granted, most of the time I would argue Liquid came out on top, win the draft department, but Expert was legitimately miles ahead. And so that is enough of a gauge for me to go, I'm really starting to doubt if Liquid has the opportunity to take out Expert.
Expert's looking scary in general throughout this entire event, and also I was upstairs talking to some of the guys after their match versus Fnatic, and overall spirits didn't seem to be that down. They sort of like anticipated the winners finals to go in a similar fashion to the way it did. So overall, I think team morale is good, and Expert is looking pretty solid overall.
Yeah, not too much of a drain there in that previous series for Expert compared to Liquid.
I do think there is one element that I'm hoping to see more from Team Liquid as we do get to these matches that do matter more. I feel like their drafts have been a little bit more linear and a little bit more reserved, as if they're just playing things they know that works, not playing what they think is very effective to earn straight-up victories. They haven't been pushed to the limit far enough to where they have to bring out what they think is good. So now, hopefully, with them coming to losers finals, I expect to see more than what we've seen in the last couple of days.
I mean, you say that from Liquid, you say, but there has been that one Vikings one-dimensional play, but the last series felt like it's a bit more of a foray away from that.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say someone that's really stepping up their game this tournament that I was not expecting to be so effective was Nurok on Dahaka in particular. That is going to be something that will be contested in this matchup, that Dahaka for sure, because he is hitting tongues that you would imagine they should not be connecting.
Let's turn our attention to Expert, a team that obviously at the start of the day had to go up against Fnatic, and it's not the easiest thing to do by any means. They understand that that's a hard matchup. What can you define from a team like Expert, Glaurung?
Honestly, it's their versatility that really interests me most, and that guy right there, Thero Angel, he, I think, sort of is the glue that holds Expert together from the perspective of, like, he's sitting in the solo lane, constantly cracking jokes about how they're going to camp him, and I feel like in-game that might actually, like, raise morale for the other 4.
Guys, Expert?
Yeah, I mean, Expert with the Athuro, I mean, Glaurung's really nailed this on the head here. The moment Athuro came onto this roster, it feels like they have just been pushed enough to become this team that is phenomenal. That top lane, having someone that can be on their own and be 2v1, 3v1 at moments, allows for this 4-man that has been so strong for a while for Team Expert to be effective. And you're seeing the results. They are doing so well in this tournament that some of us are even expecting them to maybe even come out and 3-0 Team Liquid.
Yeah. Athero actually is one of the kind of guys who I really want to give a lot of credit to. I feel like in game, there's moments where communication can be negative, easy to give negatively, but I feel like he's the kind of guy who no matter what the situation is happening, he's going to be like, guys, I'm getting camped, but good job. Just keep it up on your side of the map.
Right. Dread?
With me, when I look at Expert, specifically focusing on their series that they had against Fnatic, especially game number 1, and the playstyles that they were able to display and the strength they were able to display with them, I feel like I've underestimated their strength overall. And that was kind of very eye-opening for me, what I got to experience from them today. The biggest thing I felt like against Fnatic specifically is they gave too much respect to Fnatic, so much so that half the reason I think that Fnatic looked so dominant, especially games 2 and 3, is because they were just so afraid of the FNC that sat above the health bar, and if they stopped and removed that, especially if they're confident against Team Liquid, it will look really, really scary.
Yeah, I think there were moments when you and I were casting where we were like, Fnatic seems unbeatable, but there are moments where they should be beatable.
Yeah.
It's just that people just need to push that envelope a little bit more. Even if they're not going to succeed, just pushing for it and being okay with that call is always something that can be a strength.
Okay, let's take a look at what maps have been picked and vetoed, of course, as we get into this best of 5. Braxis goes away, likewise so does Cursed Hollow, and we will be on Infernal Shrines to start things off, with that being Team Liquid's pickup here, Glauro.
Infernal Shrines makes a lot of sense from Liquid. They played Vikings earlier in this tournament. On this map, they overall have a good macro understanding of the map, but I'd say the same from Expert. Expert had a very dominant showing about like the split pressure playstyle earlier versus Fnatic, and I think this will be a very explosive match.
Other thoughts maybe moving into Infernal Shrines? It's obviously a map that both teams are very comfortable on.
Give me that Diablo. Blumby, when they played against GFE on that Diablo, was impressive, especially towards that late game. Still not quite Breeze level, but that's definitely a hard level to reach, but he was making plays that really set the tone for Team Liquid going into the late game that I expect to see here.
The one thing about Infernal Shrines is that every time I see Europe play it, I get really excited, not necessarily because their dynamic is overly different than the rest of the world, but because Europe traditionally does run so many crazy and very different play styles that eventually, I mean, depending on the era, becomes meta. Infernal Shrines enables that. It's one of the few maps where almost nothing is not viable. You can be overly offensive. Granted, it's a bit riskier. You can play a split push style, or you can kind of go for just like the 5-man death ball. And so I think that really is kind of just like, may the best team win here, starting with Infernal Shrines. It's a really nice beginning to the series.
Well, as we are getting closer to the picks and bans here, is there anything that stands out for you other than things like Diablo? Is there anything else that might come to mind, Glaurung?
I feel like Liquid just came off a pretty dominant performance on Infernal Shrines. Not dominant in the sense that they were winning the entire game, but dominant in the sense that when it came down to the critical moments, they were able to execute. And so because of that fact, I feel like they are more warmed up than Expert on this map currently. So I think going into the series, or this map in particular, it's something I'm watching.
I'm more interested to see if Expert's going to run what we saw, what they played against Fnatic, because that was an interesting way to take on this battleground where they went in with the Karazim, the Illidan, going for full dives, trying to force fights, and they did well from the early to the mid-game, control the map pretty well. It was just their late-game calls that we were a little bit shaky on. I wouldn't mind seeing them run that strategy here and see if they can execute a final blow. Can they go for the lethal and get that core?
I do wonder if they run that strategy, though, would it be as, like, how much was that Fnatic's comp and what they displayed versus how much is a Expert strategy? Because I wonder, you know, if Wubby hadn't gotten caught out in the Leoric, for instance, for those first couple levels, would we have seen the same game? I'm not totally disagreeing, but it's like, these are a lot of questions that we've got to be answering, knowing that this is the map we're going to.
Yeah, it was certainly new for us to see that from Expert, and it probably was something just for Fnatic, because typically we see that Sonya, the Malthael on the top lane, which, by the way, we haven't seen much Malthael this entire weekend.
Barely any Sonya, considering it's Expert.
Yeah, agreed, right? Would love to see those top laners that we've seen Athuro be very dominant on.
Well, I mean, there was a heavy focus on things like melee for Expert, as you're mentioning, on Infernal Shrines. But Team Liquid has shown no shyness about going towards things like Cassia, even the potential of a Lili down the line. Admittedly, Expert has been able to kind of do that as well. So could that be a problem for them? Something that they have to look out for? What do we think?
Yeah, you always need to be aware of what Team Liquid or your opponents are willing to rotate into.
Yeah.
We see a lot of Lenara from Fnatic, so perhaps the idea was, hey, if we get heavy melees and we can dive in and kill Lenara, we're pretty good to go. Not so easy to do against a Cassia or even that Ariel. Remember, Ariel, it feels like if Team Liquid doesn't get the Ariel, granted, it's a little bit different against GFE. They haven't been as effective as of late.
All right, time to get into it. Draft number 1 here in this best of 5. Remember, the loser goes home there. Eliminated, the winner gets the opportunity at Fnatic in the finals.
So Expert's first pick here, I wonder if they're going to open up. Okay, they do end up going with the Oriole ban. I think that's great because they identify Liquid's strength as a team when running that double support style composition. It's a standard, good, solid opening first ban, I'd say.
Yeah, it's always, I mean, it's been international meta again for a long while, so I'm not surprised to see that come out for them. On the side of Liquid, though, I feel like there's a lot more options, if you will, when it comes to the banning, and I feel like on a map like Infernal and it being the beginning of the series, it's really just up to their choice. I don't think there's an auto force in this rotation because it is Shrines, everything's an option. You just got to go, what do we want? You know, if you want the Kerrigan, then you obviously like, maybe I want the Uther, maybe I can bait them into it and hyper-focus on that. It's just the Wild West for now, and we'll see where Liquid lands.
One thing I'd love to watch within this draft is what Expert puts priority on Warrior-wise. I think Bad Benny is quickly rising to the top of the ranks when it comes to the Warriors within Europe. And we mentioned Blumby's Diablo, but I'm particularly impressed with Bad Benny's Diablo as well. His Anubarak's also solid. What really impresses me about him is when it comes right down to the finer calculations, he always seems to get away with just the smallest amounts of HP.
I mean, that's one of the greatest things about Europe, in my opinion, is right now all the teams that are currently at this tournament, and Dignitas included, their warriors and their supports are some of the top of the line, and you have to have that foundation for you to be effective in the region. And so you're right. I mean, Bad Benny is a tank that's been around for a while. My first couple of games watching this guy, I was completely impressed.
And the Illidan coming out from Team Liquid as their choice to ban makes a lot of sense. Team Expert has had success earlier today even with the Illidan on this map, and I'm really curious to see what Expert ends up first picking. If they wanted to go with the split push style, I could see a prioritization on Genji being realistic.
Yeah.
Uther's another one.
As of late, it's been that Genji. The Greymane as well has always been a high priority, and the Anubarak. And there's actually the Anubarak pickup here from Team Expert. Because go ahead and get Bad Benny, his hero, as you were mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely. Bad Benny's just so spectacular when it comes to his... What impresses me about Bad Benny is Anubarak, I feel like his Impale always hits like 2+ heroes at any given point. Just, he's very patient with his crowd control. And I honestly think first pick on the Anubarak makes a lot of sense here.
What are we thinking for Team Liquid, guys?
On the side of Liquid, though, I mean, with the Ariel gone, it's typically that you have to take the Uther into this rotation so you don't fall behind in the world of the support meta. To give that over with the power pick of the Anubarak seems a little bit much, but it's like, what else do they go with? Or, again, you could get real wild and go in a different direction, but keep it traditional. Greymane, nice flask build use around the shrines on this map. Very generic so far for them into the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good synergy between both Greymane and Uther. Uther being a very good setup for Cursed Bullet if Team Liquid didn't opt into a heavy CC tank. So there's a lot of synergy there. Greymane's cocktail build also very good at securing the shrine. But looking at this from Expert's perspective, we've seen them run double support in the past, and now that they've identified there's an Uther, I almost wonder if they go into that heavy aggression style composition, which is good with the Anub, like by picking up a Genji, or if they go into a hyper-sustained style poke composition themselves.
They can run sustain. They've done it in the past. Task Tracer has been a thing for Nick as well. Vala, he's also played in the past. Fallen off a little bit for Expert. I wouldn't mind seeing that Genji and actually trying to force fights and get in that back line.
Just curious, I know that Expert has been kind of at the forefront of the Sonya department, and that a lot of the time it's been as a response to those kind of melee assassins that are very squishy, or like the tracers coming in, the poison spear damage is too high. I was going to ask if there's any opportunity, because it's shrines, that rather than it being responsive, it would be a bit more proactive, especially with Illidan gone, it's suddenly incentivizing that melee assassin, but
yeah,
obviously too late here, sad day.
Team Expert generally holds that 4th and 5th slot for that Sonya, but I think I agree with you. There are moments when you should pull it out on the earlier side, and we've seen it a few times, especially on BOE in particular. We'll see that Sonya pretty early if they do want to go that route. But we do have the Abathur, the Genji, the Anubarak, and Abathur is starting to become a bit of a mainstay on Infernal Shrines. We've seen it, what, a couple times here already this weekend?
Yeah, and I think Expert, because of their dominant macro-oriented play versus Fnatic in the first game. I mean, Fnatic was kept on their toes throughout that entire first game until the very end when the core rush ended up being stumped down. But I think Expert deciding to go with the Genji Abathur makes a lot of sense.
Interesting choice to ban out the Dahaka there for Team Liquid. We just hyped up Nurok's play on it, and his performance has been outstanding.
Yep.
They are already a global onto the other side of the table with the Abathur, so you got to be considering the late game experience department. It screams TLV, which is why Expert is now sitting there with the hover.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
it was a suspect ban, if you were to ask me. The Dahaka,
yeah, it is. but I feel like it's too suspect, right? Like, that wasn't just casual Dahaka. Like, I agree with you. It almost feels like it's a trap. You ban the Vikings, you miss something. There's a hole here. Like, maybe I'm giving Liquid too much credit, but I agree with you. It's like, it is too suspicious. Like, the minute I see that, I go, Vikings, right? So.
I mean, I'm glad that Expert identifies the Vikings, but they are taking their time, so I almost wonder if they're thinking, was the Dahaka ban to bait the Vikings ban for some unbeknown reason to them?
Isn't it just to avoid the potential of a Brightwing ban so that they could potentially just have double if they wanted to again and still have a potential global on that side?
I think that is a possibility. From my perspective, I don't think Uther Brightwing is necessarily the strongest double support composition. I think that when you do run double support, you really want one support who either has utility or is good at saving a target, and another support who's, you know, more into that hyper sustain role. And when you have a Brightwing and an Uther, neither of there's a bit of an overlap, I suppose.
Yeah, they both kind of fill primer number one and kind of struggle in the sustain department. Like, Brightwing technically sustains, but it's not comparative to other supports that are very good, especially those like the Malfurion, Stukovs, Moraleses. They're, you know, kind of unrivaled in that area. I agree with you. I don't necessarily feel like it was to be able to get that Brightwing out of the way, and so now I'm just sitting here going, okay, I'm ready to be, you know, displayed whatever it's going to be.
Kailaris is a beast.
He's a absolute legend. I still am going to say I don't think that's why the Dahaka ban came out that clearly, but I respect your ability to get the Brightwing right.
I mean, all my predictions have been pretty on point this tournament.
Okay,
but I'm just a host,
You
mate.
got some on your shoulder. You might want to get it off there, you know, just...
Thanks, mate.
But to be fair, Nurok has had actually, like, to me, I didn't expect this at all, but he's had a very phenomenal performance when it does come to that Brightwing. The one thing that comes to mind was, I believe, Expert versus GFE. He ends up sidestepping. Like,
it was Freedom.
It was Freedom. Yeah, it was the coolest looking play I've ever seen from a Brightwing. Just 1 HP, and just a little juke here and there.
You know what's funny is Nurok actually hasn't played that Brightwing in a long time. That was the first time that we've seen it pulled out in a while, and the reason why they did it is because nobody else in the team could fill the role, and he's like, you know what, I'll just play Brightwing. And he shows up and has a phenomenal game, so they're probably like, hey, maybe we got a secret weapon under our tails here. They're going to pull out the Brightwing. Now, over to left, Team Expert thinking about their 4th and their 5th pickup. Gonna need probably... They want to go with
maybe?
Soul Take?
Yeah, they ran Monk with this comp earlier
there's that
today.
Sony we're talking about.
Okay, so this sort of composition looks very reminiscent of what we saw them run against Fnatic. However, the Sonya and the Illidan do fulfill very different roles when it comes to that split pressure. Sonya does not fulfill the role of the global, but one thing we've seen Athero innovate in the European region is the leap in combination with the Anub Rock. I actually think there's a lot of synergy. You go in with the Anub, you get the Cocoon on the Uther, and then leap with Poison Spear, you delete any target with the Genji follow-up.
And that does synergize here with the Genji and the Kerzim. I am a bit worried with the Uther and Brightwing. There's multiple tools here to save that target, and of course damage mitigation. But if you do the surprise factor of coming in from different angles and jump on a target, it's devastating.
Yeah, one thing about Liquid's draft.
Ooh.
What?
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
It's been a while. Sylvanas.
Okay. This, to me, screams, we don't care how much you split push. We want to get an objective and push with it and shut down all your option to just play around the map.
Agreed. And they also have that pseudo Brightwing, which can peel off and jump to the fight when need be.
I agree, but hear me out in this rotation. We knew the Dahaka, suspicious, draws the TLV, then it goes to a Brightwing Diablo. If your idea was to be able to get the siege and to get that pressure out early onto him, why not Dibbles Kerrigan in that transition, then get the Sylph? Like, we've seen Hyper Carry Inferno Shrines comps exist before. They went into a sustained teamfight and then picked a split push who's going to fail into the teamfight and is vulnerable to the Hyper Carry engage.
Well, time for predictions.
I'm going to go with the right. I think Sylvanas can be very effective against Abathur if you push the right buttons here, and so I'm assuming Team Liquid might actually have it.
I feel like Liquid looked a little bit more shaky than we've seen in the past, and Expert, in Game 1, put up a show on this map versus Fnatic. I'm going to go with Team Expert.
Shred?
I'm really hoping that I get proven wrong about the Sylph pick, but I definitely think that Expert is going to be the dominant team here.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Time now to go to our first game, and it's serious business now, as the winner of this will go to the grand finals in the full best of 5, of course. Time to go over to our commentary team for Team Liquid against Team Expert.
Expert comes to this series off of a bitter loss, while Team Liquid confidently steps forward after taking out Gale Force Esports in the last series 3-1, and only one best of 5 left to determine our second grand finalist, Grubby.
Yeah, let's see if Team Liquid is the one that ruined all the North American teams' dreams, defeating each one of them once, and if that's their only destiny, or if there is more in their destiny. Can they topple Expert? Expert looked so good in that first game against Fnatic.
They did.
But then they angered the bear, and Fnatic smacked them down with all righteous fury. Here's another chance for Expert. They're arrayed here on the left, in the blue. It's ADRD on Abathur, Nick on Genji, Athero Angel and Sonya. It's Carson and Karazim and Bad Benny on the Nubarak. They are Team Expert.
And in the red, Team Liquid. Nurok playing Brightwing, Hasuops playing Greymane, Blumby playing as Diablo, Darkmock will be on that Sylvanas, and finally Uther, played by Splendor.
Cool level 1 talents coming out of Darkmock.
Yeah.
Dreadful Wake. It's a bit of mana sustain, which he can struggle with when you play the W build, that Lost Soul, spreading your damage. And also it is a 7-second lockdown on minions instead of 2 seconds. Give a little bit of sway in the lane. Can be nice against Abathur. Works on both minions and mercenaries. But I feel like it's been a long time, Gilly, since I've seen Sylvanas work against a proper world-class pro team.
Yeah, it is somewhat of a gimmick. You are very reliant on making sure that you can get an early lead. You want to be running the show when it comes to the battleground objectives.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, your objectives, just look at the way that Darkmock's able to shut down structures here, and then Hasuops can go in and assist Greymane and get that extra damage from the Worgen form. You are going to be able to siege down structures so incredibly quickly. So this may change how Expert has to approach the shrine phases specifically.
Yeah, and it puts a lot of burden on Expert. Nice engage there on Blumby with the Poison Spear, hitting that Arcane Spear and taking down Diablo. Nice 4-man move on him, getting their first takedown of the game. But it puts a lot of pressure on Team Expert. Falling behind early game is not an option against either Vikings or Sylvanas. They punish it like nothing else. No swift strike available there. Darkmock narrowly escapes Diablo's destiny, Diablo's fate.
And what is cool for Team Liquid is that they have been able to hold on to this strategy. They did show their Diablo prowess versus Gale Force Esports in the last series on Infernal Shrines. But this now with Sylvanas, we've seen so many ignoring of these shrines initially because the Punisher is fairly weak until you get into the later game. But again, when you pair being able to turn off structures from that, you can take out so many more structures from that Sylvanas. But you can also, if you have somebody on top of the shrine, push along with her to try to take out some towers and open it up for the Punisher push on the fort. Hasuops narrowly escaping, Expert continuing to put on the damage, and they've got Sonya onto the shrine.
Athero Angel using his whirlwind to shred those shrine minions. 26 skeletons down already, a small period of time with talent lead for Team Expert. But Team Liquid is here to claim what is theirs. They need every Punisher they can get. Big turnaround there on Bad Benny, nearly taken down. It looks like Team Liquid is taking control of the shrine. They have a 5 versus 4 body advantage here, but they're down on skeletons.
Expert starting to get low. Blumby looping around for the chase on Athero Angel. Hammer of Justice, Polymorph as well, stopping Athero Angel from moving back onto the shrine. Athero would love to get back in here, start whirlwinding and healing back up, but not being able to do so. The zoning from Team Liquid, and even though Expert got to this shrine first, Team Liquid claims the first Punisher of the game.
Yeah, but Expert showed a really good discipline there. They kept re-engaging, but never to the point where they died. They were buying time for Abathur to get experience. They succeeded in this fashion, but now let's see a little bit of good old-fashioned Sylvanas push there. The Black Arrow trait disabling the enemy structures. Bad Benny gets away thanks to an ADRD Carapace. Very timely save.
Punisher jumps on top of Curson. He is Karazim and has a Radiant dash back. Expert dealing with the Punisher in the best way they can. But again, that right there is an example of why you want to get Sylvanas with the objective. They are able to take out a fort with the first Punisher of the game, and taking out forts not only is going to give them experience, not only is it going to open up a way for them slowly to get to a keep, but it also limits where Abathur can safely push.
Pushing Abathur further and further back helps for the XP game for Team Liquid against Expert. Big fight, brawling, starting here. Hasselhoff's getting cornered, he gets saved. Last second, the last vestige of mana pool for Splendor was enough to save him there. Brought to the brink, re-engages. Pixie Dust used on Hasselhoff. That was really close.
Now the Pixie Dust there, and Hasselhoff's moving around the curve, doing his best to try to limit who all can see him, as well as get away from the damage dealers as best as they can. And in that beat, saving him, Team Liquid make sure that Expert doesn't get any experience to start coming back in, or get even further ahead of them in the game.
Yeah, Team Liquid get the structural lead here, but they are falling behind in experience. The Abathur effect is strong. And keep in mind that with that Black Arrow trade, Sylvanas will shut down structures. This is very good early game. The Punishers have a relatively low health pool early, and the structures are a large part of defending them normally. You take away that element. But as you go further and further in the game, team fights and takedowns become more and more important. You need to remember that this draft may only be asymmetrically balanced. As long as Expert keeps an even XP situation as Liquid, they are ahead. Team Liquid does not scale well into the late game. They need to have a 1, 2, 3 level lead. They're looking for an early cheese victory here, or an early structural victory here against Expert. And it remains to be seen where they can do so. This next Shrine phase will be very telling.
Team Expert with glorious rotations move a lot of Team Liquid down to the bottom to deal with the push that they started onto that fort. Now with the Shrine activating up in the top lane, they can move Abathur to a different lane to continue their soak there, help out with the mercenaries of Team Liquid in the mid, and try to get a start on that Shrine. Sony hasn't moved into there yet. There are some Shaman that will delay the movements into that Shrine, and Team Liquid are hoping that they can use that time of clearing out the Shaman to get ahead.
10 skeletons already for Liquid, but Expert gets further ahead. Big engage here on Nurok. Nurok getting away there from the Poison Spear, the turnaround on the Thero Angel.
And heal back up, the double support composition. As long as nobody dies, Team Liquid can reinitiate very quickly. Meanwhile, Aethero Angel has to get some heals back up. He's not into the later game yet where he has his own kinds of shielding to keep himself healthy, as well as potentially the extra heal off of the Whirlwind at level 13 if that's where Aethero wants to move into in that build. Team Liquid starts ramping up quickly again in Skeletal Defenders. Team Expert will have to give that up to Liquid.
Love what Expert is doing here. They showed a similar mastery of the map earlier on against Fnatic, keeping them on the back foot, going ahead 5-0 in takedowns and controlling the map from start till right before the very end where Fnatic took it back. Look at this, Expert pushing the mid there with all 4 members getting level 10. The defense of the Punisher will be extremely easy here. And the question is should Team Liquid have actually captured this Punisher at this very time, or leave it for a 39?
I'm wondering why they did not choose to do that. It wasn't like it was incredibly close in Skeletal Defenders where they felt pressured to make sure that they could get that last one at all.
Now they can't push with it. So what does Sylvanas do here? And even if they were going to do it this way, Gilly, should Sylvanas be the one that finishes it? I know that positionally she was the closest, but if they were going to do it this way, you would have wanted Sylvanas plus 3 other members minimum to be in the south side of the map at the very same time, so that you can do a structural push here. Look at this. They are doing the push, yes. But how long do they really have? In comes a Ninja, in comes Genji, and the rotation is coming over for Expert. Team Liquid feels this and they start pulling back, and all they got for their efforts is 1.5 towers.
Let's see if this will be the first 5v5 fight of the game, of the series in game number 1. You know, I wonder, Grubby, if potentially the reasoning why they didn't delay it is because they just wanted to buy some time for them to get 10.
Yeah, get back in the game. Very valid idea here.
Polymorph goes down. Diablo's been taken out, but so is Bad Benny. It's a tank-for-tank trade at this point. Aethero Angel goes into Wrath of the Berserker mode. It's into the spin to win as well. No further kills. They're just going to deal with the clone of ADRD, cloning that Genji.
Very interesting half fight here. Both of the teams not quite ready for it. Anubrak goes down before using Cocoon due to an expertly done Polymorph and Cursed Bullet combination from Team Liquid. Likewise, Diablo was too far away from Uther, who could not receive that Divine Shield. Diablo will take the full resurrection time. Did not have 100 souls yet, apparently. You know, Apocalypse Divine Shield were never used. So a little skirmish, the Warriors goes down, and both teams show their teeth. Now the aggressive invade here on Team Expert. Sonya has no way to escape yet.
No, Hammer of Justice there, only getting the shielding from the Carapace. But Hasselhoff is on the chase. 7-sided strike draws him away so he can't take out Sonya. But it doesn't matter because Team Liquid take out a new Barak.
Apocalypse was royally late, I would say, but it still clipped the edge of Anubrak, and that was enough to take him down. With the overpower into Shadow Charge into the wall, Bad Bunny goes down once again, pre-Cocoon. It was a nice invade from Team Liquid. The Divine Shield on the mounted Greyman, I've never seen that. Didn't even take a clip of damage, didn't get dismounted, and will continue riding to safety. Afraid there that Genji with Abathur hat would pick him off.
That was the clone too, so ADRD's got to feel good about that, using the clone to get Divine Shield, but even still,
yeah,
a very close game between both of these teams. Slight experience advantage still because of that Abathur Soak, and Team Liquid making sure that they have Brightwing with the team. It's more important for them than hoping to get a little extra split soak that she doesn't get caught, and she is there with the team for the Emerald win in case the disengage is necessary. But Team Liquid continues to have control on these shrines.
Yeah, and Nuruk just Hearthstone, which means he's gonna soak top. But he doesn't know where Expert is. He knows Expert just capped the Bruiser camp. He doesn't see them in mid lane, so he should be careful, and he is. You can see on the minimap he's being very careful. Since after the Bruiser camp, Expert never showed up in mid lane, where Impalers were pushing for Liquid. He knows they would be stealing enemy Bruiser. And the funny thing is, the whole reason he went to top lane is to stop Bruiser camp and to get XP and get level 13. But then he left. He was afraid he would get engaged on. Instead, he ports to his team. No level 13 yet. Bruisers are going to do massive damage. Double fall on Bruiser. That's a keep down if you ignore it. And Team Liquid puts all their eggs in one basket, pushes in here with Sylvanas, with a full HP Punisher, but the hard engage by Expert. Before level 13 talents are even picked, Liquid.
Emerald win with the Wailing Arrow, hitting a lot of members in the back line of Team Expert. Blumby dives forward, throwing back Sonya into the Apocalypse, taking him down.
There is never an escape button for Team Expert. Divine Palm was not picked. It's fully the aggressive maneuver here with 7-sided strike. But let's not forget what havoc this is going to wreak. Yeah, Sonya goes down and a keep will go down, but likewise Liquid might lose one as well. I fully expect Liquid to take a keep, to try and go away, save their own keep, and then have Expert stop their Hearthstones. Will Brightwing for great justice!
Splinter!
He didn't need to! He didn't need to, but he thought he had to.
Oh, well, Splendor eventually will go down here. Expert's hoping for more, though. They're chasing down with the Abathur Hat stab, and Genji eliminates Sylvanas.
Hey, they're delaying the kill on Uther intentionally.
He's running underneath the core.
He wants to die.
Yes.
He's ready. He has chosen his moment, and it shall be now. A very expertly done delay here of the Uther death there, as Expert continues to do more and more damage on the keep. A very awkward situation here for Liquid.
Yeah, that was a fantastic chase from Team Expert, understanding that Splendor felt the need and he was going to go down, but not only did they take out Sylvanas, they delayed Uther for a long time, and because of the ghost, he got delayed just a little bit there too, and then the top took a ton of damage. There is no mule to heal that back up, and Expert could head straight to the final remaining 4 of Team Liquid. Expert punishing the mistakes of Team Liquid, very nearly taking out this keep.
Yeah, this was the kind of difficult puzzle that will be in your Sunday newspaper, listed as very hard. Team Liquid needed to try and answer that, but Uther went full Sudoku there and actually made it that much harder. Between all the he wants to deny XP, but the way that Brightwing wanted to defend and then popped in and went back again, and it was just a really tough situation, and then Sylvanas went down.
It was important for Team Liquid to get that keep, right? They knew they had taken so much damage from the Bruiser camp, and they know that that's the strength of their composition. Use that Sylvanas along with the Punisher and get early keeps down like this structurally. But Team Expert, with their Abathur and their great calls, have stayed consistently in an experienced lead over Team Liquid. They have this talent tier advantage. Team Liquid's not far behind. They will have 16 in time to contest this shrine at some point.
Sonya scales so well into the late game, Sylvana so poorly comparatively. Team Liquid is fighting an uphill battle. Not only are they down in XP, but they're also a 4th down, they're that level down, and then they have Sylvanas against Sonya. This is going to get tough, but with a few good combinations, with Silas combos, maybe Apocalypse, this could work. Bloomby takes massive damage. He jumps in, loses 70% of his health bar.
Expert are on the point. They have more. Here comes the Burrow Charge as well. Blumby still in danger. Emerald Glen pushes everybody on the Apocalypse. ADRD cloning. Sonya ripping through Brightwing, who has Ice Block, but it's not long for this world still. And with the Shuriken will be taken out.
Down goes Brightwing. Hasuops follows. Darkmok left by himself. He will not get away from Genji there. And finally, Bloomby deliberately once again delaying Bloomby's death. Because if Bloomby comes back, if he actually dies, he comes back without his soul, sure, but he still instantly revives. Now, instead, he needs the Heartstone. We have a longer moment where Expert is not fighting Diablo on the core. So this is once again a very calculated move here by Expert. They choose not to reset his souls yet. Now they reset it. They get more time alone with the core. Diablo comes back in 3, in 2, 1. There he goes. Core 50%, 40%. Expert made a series of extremely smart moves here, and they will secure this first map.
Expert just seems to be on a strategic different level from other teams that they play. Even on Infernal Shrines versus Fnatic, they really put the test to Fnatic as to whether or not they could be the first team to take a single battleground away from Fnatic. The double Shaman Camp and the Abathur push there, getting that keep, even devoting the clone to it, ended up being what allowed them to win a decisive team fight with their better scaling into the late game and then go straight for that core.
All the pieces of the puzzle made sense. Like you said, Gilly, and the Expert show a rewriting of the Infernal Shrines map as we know it. We have seen so many evolutions of play here. When the map came out, it was all about taking Johanna Leoric, wave clear the living daylights out of their skeletons on the shrine, get the objective, as many as you can, and there's been so many differences. We are now at the Expert meta of Infernal Shrines. I'm so excited to see it. They get their first map. Let's see what the analyst panel has to say about this.
Thank you very much, guys. That's right, Expert takes the 1-0 lead so far here in this series. A little bit scary now for Team Liquid going up against Expert, considering Expert has looked very, very good throughout this tournament so far. It wasn't clean cut by any means. There were moments of hope there for Team Liquid.
Yeah, there certainly were. I feel like the Uther and the Brightwing helped out a lot when they did go in for the engage. I mean, there was a moment where 4 members jumped on a Brightwing and Uther was like, here you go, here's a heal. And Brightwing walks away with the spell shield afterwards and they were good to go. So I was actually expecting a little bit more actually from Team Liquid. I thought they would come away with a victory if they controlled Sonya better, but Expert just outplayed them.
And we're already ready to look at some of the highlights from that glowing, so why don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at this last team fight as we go into it, I'd like to pause before anything else. The thing that Expert does really well here, Kirsten in particular with the 7-sided strike, recognizes that Blumby's Shadow Charge failed to smash Nick into the wall, and they end up chunking him down roughly like 75% of his life. And as we continue with the play, I'd like to watch the Genji as he ends up getting so much value here. Same with the Thero, but watching Nick get the reset potential later in the fight is really interesting because he does a very good job of avoiding both the Uther and the Brightwing, which are the 2 primary threats to him on the Genji. A good cleansing fist from Kirsten as well keeps him out here, but at this point in the fight, he's able to just get reset after reset. Looking at the Brightwing first, and then Hasuob's right above, and he ends up missing this next E on Darkmok, but it doesn't matter. He's able to follow with the agile dismount, and it's really, really solid play all around from him. He avoided both the Uther and the Brightwing, which are major threats to the Genji, and it's hard.
I want to give mad respect to Bad Benny. He just initiated that team fight from a flank and fog. He opened with Cocoon and then hit a 4-man burrow charge. Caused every cooldown on the side of Team Liquid to hit full panic, and then it was just clean and shot from that point out.
I do also think there was a bit of a mistake, though, on the escape route. They dropped the Apocalypse, had 5 members in one isolated area that was much bigger, but they all funneled in that 4 choke, which allowed for that 4-man Bad Benny engage to occur. So it seemed like a bit of a mistake from Team Liquid, but great engage there from Bad Bunny to actually see that, isolate it, and move in.
Showcasing why they put such an emphasis on securing these top-notch warriors for Bad Bunny. First picking that or New Rock in that battleground.
I mean, you've been able to cast all of HGC Europe. You've seen Bad Bunny evolve as a player. Has he come on leaps and bounds?
Oh my gosh, I feel like he's been this good since the start, and they finally just kind of been unlocked. Every time that I've seen Bad Bunny go in the engage, especially with Medivh portals, this team just seems to be on point. They know when Bad Bunny's going in that he sees something, and he knows how he's going to push his hero to the limits, and it's great to see it being on full display here at a tournament at the Western Clash.
So what does Team Liquid have to do now? How do they approach the upcoming map? We'll see what our map is going to be in a moment, I suspect. But how do they approach it with the mentality, I suppose? Because it feels like a lot of people have come into this tournament saying, Team Expert, they're probably going to get to the final. They're looking that good. How do you kind of quell those potential doubts that you might have as being Team Liquid?
Honestly, at this point, I'm beginning to struggle to identify that. I think a lot of it comes down to, was that Silva intended in the long run? Was that the overall game plan? I mean, don't get me wrong, after seeing it, I was actually way too harsh, or more harsh than I wanted to be. It was a lot better than I thought. But if that wasn't their master game plan after the Dahaka suspicious ban that we thought, I would be scared mentally for them. But if that was the master plan and it didn't work out, it's actually pretty easy to like disperse the responsibility of that loss to like, poor draft. It was just the Silva. Like, we didn't think about it that well. We'll go on to the next one.
I feel like Team Liquid's a team that's willing to take one of those one-off risky game plans, especially at the beginning of a series. Seeing something a little bit unusual like the Sylvanas here, it makes a lot of sense from their perspective, and the thought process behind it was there. They executed it in the early game. They took down a couple forts with the first couple Punishers, but then a couple overextensions, and Expert was just able to take the reins back.
Let's find out what map we're going to be on for game number 2, as of course we had our bans.